Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us in this celebratory conversation for the launch of two wonderful new middle grade novels published by our friends at Scholastic. Free Period, the debut novel from author Ali Terese, and Gut Reaction, a debut literary collaboration from award-winning author Kirby Larson and debut novelist, but veteran daughter, Quinn Wyatt. Hi, everybody. How are you this morning?
Hi.
We're great.
Good. I'm glad. My name is Bryn Lopez. I am the manager of Indie Bookstore Children's Book World in Los Angeles, where it is our mission that every child sees themselves and each other reflected on our bookshelves. And we do that job because we have wonderful books like the books that you are talking about today to fill that need to reach students. Kirby Larson is the award-winning and best-selling author of beloved historical fiction novels, including her debut YA novel, Hattie Big Sky, which earned a Newbery honor, pursued her passion for history and stories. I love history as well. And I love authors who include their personal, snippets of their own life stories. Patricia Polacco does it in picture books, and you do it so beautifully in your novels. And your hit stories for young people, Hattie Ever After, your terrific Dogs of World War II series, Duke Dash, Liberty, and Code Word Courage. And then combining your love for history and mystery with your Audacity Jones series, and always new things on the horizon for you. But this is a really new thing with your collaboration with Quinn Wyatt for Gut Reaction. Quinn, this is your debut book. You're living in Washington. You have your daughters, your husband, your dog, everything is, but now, are you prepared for this adventure? Are you excited about this adventure?
So excited. This has been fabulous. Yeah.
Yeah, and you've never done anything like this before, this type of collaboration, right?
No, nope. The first book written, so.
I'm so excited for both of you. And Ali Terese writes funny and heartfelt middle grade stories, but this is your first debut novel. I mean, I have to tell you, Ali, I know you have been out there, just reaching people in different ways with your stories, but this book is going to make such an impact. I was so enamored by the characters, and I knew immediately the kids that were just going to go crazy when they read this book. So
Thank you so much.
Yeah, I want you all to know how much I love both of your books, and I look forward to being able to talk to you about that in detail. But first off, we're going to hear from each of you about your books. So we're going to start with Gut Reaction, and let me just move this onto the main stage. And Kirby and Quinn, take it away. Let me make this the focus. There we go.
Okay. So we were asked, why did we write this book? And we wrote this book because I, as a child, felt sick a lot. And it took a lot of discovery to figure out that what I had was called Crohn's disease. And it's a part of the irritable bowel disease family. And unfortunately, a lot of the symptoms are pretty embarrassing, especially for kids and teens when they're diagnosed. And going through it as a kid, I felt pretty alone, and like I didn't have representation in books or other kids I can connect to or talk to about it, because I felt kind of shy and embarrassed about what I was going through. So my mom and I have been partners for...
Quinn, I can only see the first slide. I'm not sure it's going...
Is
it moving?
You need to try using the arrow key, the left or right arrow key. That should move yours to the next image.
I am, yes.
Okay, it's not moving on our screen.
Oh, all right. Let's see. Bring it back. Well, did that progress it?
No, we're not seeing it move, I'm afraid.
Okay, let's see.
Well, let's pretend they're seeing an adorable picture of you in my arms when you were little.
Okay.
Let's hear now. We're going to let your mom do the beautiful descriptive work that she is capable of. We know she's capable of.
All right, hold on. I'm going to see you. I know I just stopped sharing.
Okay.
I'm just going to start. So do you see it now?
It is coming up, and we're not seeing anything. No, it's just a black screen, I'm afraid.
Having problems. All right. Well, then we're just going to keep going.
Okay.
So yes, so we had a picture of me and my mom when I was little, when my mom was little. And because we've been partners for quite a long time. And a lot of it was because we had to spend a lot of time together trying to figure out what was going on with me. And so come to find that I wanted to see representation in literature about kids going through what I went through. And so I asked my mom very kindly, would you please write a book with a kid who has Crohn's disease in it? And she said no for a very long time. And then she finally said, okay, yes, but I would like you to write it too. So.
And that I wasn't saying no to be difficult. That time in our life had been very painful, and I honestly did not want to revisit it. But when Quinn really pointed out to me that it would have meant a lot to her to have representation, then I knew exactly what she was talking about. I only knew the story from this point of view of the mom watching your kid suffer. I didn't know what it was like to live in her body. And so I have lots of writing experience, but she has the lived experience. And it was really important that we have both those things come together in the book. And gosh, I'm really disappointed that we aren't able to show you our last slide, which is the most adorable young woman. Her name is Maggie, and she was the 2023 Crohn's and Colitis Take Steps honoree. So obviously she also has Crohn's, and she discovered gut reaction, and she and her mom have just become like the biggest cheerleaders. But Maggie isn't the only person who's reached out to us to express their gratitude that we are presenting this story in a book form. It's a bit overwhelming how many people we've been hearing from, and sadly, too many kids have a connection to this story, whether they are experiencing personally or whether they have a beloved friend or cousin also experiencing it. And so this book is doing exactly what we hoped. It's like letting kids see themselves, contributing to the conversation to normalize talking about these kinds of things. And for kids who are blessed with really good health, we're hoping that it also gives them a chance to grow to be more empathetic to kids who are suffering with some disease like Crohn's or other invisible diseases. So that is why we wrote the book.
That is so exciting. I cannot wait to talk to you about all of this. We're going to go to Ali for a second. And by the way, we're going to actually, if you send me those images, we'll put them on the actual page, the book page where this video will be seen. So people will actually be able to see those images as well. And same thing will be for Ali, you able to do the same so we can share, more about the book as well. You can take it away, Ali.
It looks like my ability to share is gone now too, unfortunately.
Oh, Quinn, can you try and see if I don't know if yours is still shared.
No, I canceled my sharing, and it
Okay.
looks like I could share again if I wanted to. So I'm not sharing.
So if you go below, are you able to share something else? I have to apologize. I'm so sorry that it's not allowed.
We did practice this. This is frustrating.
Yeah, it's not giving me the option to pick what I share anymore. It's only letting me share my full screen, which would be sharing us on camera. But I'll just do the same. I'll just do the same thing. I'll just send you the slides.
Yeah, absolutely. And I will include it. Yeah, absolutely. In fact, what I'll do is make an actual reel of all of your slides.
That's fun.
And they'll be there for people to watch.
Okay, so then I'll hold this up. So, my name is Ali Terese. I'm the author of This Beauty-Free Period. It's a middle grade story of friendship and period equity. And I just want to be clear, when I say periods, I am talking about menstruation And when I talk about equity, I'm talking about the need for maxi pads in our bathrooms. And if you have any kind of comfort level with this issue or none at all, don't worry. You're welcome in this story, and we're going to have tons of fun talking about it because it's full of bestie banter. It's full of wildly weird crafts like crochet uteruses and delightfully disgusting desserts. And it is my debut novel. It was just published last week by Scholastic, along with this great book that we're talking about. And I'm so thrilled to be talking to you about it today. So I'm just going to give you a very brief overview of what happens in the book. And it's about two best friends named Helen and Gracie. And they're fighting for maxi pads in all school bathrooms for all students who menstruate. Now, these girls are not born do-gooders. They are absolute chaos monsters and my favorite characters that I've ever written. Because I really think it's important that we see that you don't have to have perfect grades. You don't have to be on the student council. You don't have to be the perfect kid at school to make a difference. So they take one prank, two step too far at the beginning of this book. And their principal has pretty much had it with them. She's just trying to get to the end of the year when she can ship them off to high school and never think about them again. So the principal does the unthinkable. She orders them to care about something because they've been so destructive. And through that punishment, they make their way to their school's community action club and join this fight to get maxi pads in all school bathrooms for all students who menstruate. Now, I just want to acknowledge again that periods can be tough to discuss. They have never been an easy issue for me. But what I tell myself is every time I talk about periods, I'm chipping away a little bit at the stigma that society has created around this issue. And I hope that by using my voice and writing funny stories, that it'll make it easier for other people to talk about periods. So I'll just share in that vein that when I was a youngster, when I was in middle school, I had so much pain and shame about my period that when I became a parent, I didn't know how I was going to talk about it in a positive way. And this book is really the result of that exploration, because what do we do when we're writers? We spend thousands of words working through our feelings. So the reason this is a friendship book is because it was my friends that got me through these hard times. It was my friends who I said, do you have a pad? Is this normal? Can you see the pad in my pants? Probably asked that 1,000 times when I was little. And so in this book, I want everyone to feel welcome. I want everyone to laugh and have a good time. And I promise you that there's going to be a character that you can relate to no matter what your comfort level is for talking about periods. And I'll leave it there since I don't have the slides and we can have our conversation.
I am so looking forward to this conversation. I want you to know, I actually have my cuterus right here, actually. So I have actually a bunch of, thanks to Ali, I actually have a bunch of the crafts that have been made. Helen and Gracie's craft. These all say, what do they say? Squee. There's lots of little conversations. Free period. Tacky queen. They're really special. I want to talk first about Scholastic because there's a reason why you're both here with Scholastic releasing and publishing these books, because I feel that like Scholastic has always been there to be able to fill the need when it comes to stories for young people about topics that can be harder to be able to discuss, particularly from an adult perspective, talking to kids about books. And so they will talk about, in the past, they've brought books about abuse and bullying, but also about LGBTQ and trans experiences for kids. And so they're already there. And I thought when I read both of your books about one of their legends in their on the Scholastic line, who does what you did so beautifully, all of you in your books, and that's Gordon Korman. Gordon Korman has been made like 100 books. And he never gets awards or anything. But he writes these books like they're funny. They're about friendship. They're about experiences that kids just relate to. Kids love those types of stories, and you all did it here. You have something in common. I felt like the importance of pre-confirmed bathroom locations are very important in both of your books. When you're navigating new spaces in particular, and then the boundless value of baked goods for therapy, activism tools, and positive talking points with your friends. I thought like, oh, there is actually a lot in common between these two books. What do you think? Did you notice that when reading each other's books?
Yeah. I mean,
I think that
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead. Oh, I was going to say, I think touched on just experiences, right? That
Mhm.
kids have. And I think food is super important to kids, and absolutely bathrooms, right? Like, so for multiple reasons. But
Yeah.
yeah, we're just writing about the experiences that kids are having.
For each of you, why was it important to balance out the I let's say the drama or the trauma of the experience of some of these situations with just a normal school experience with humor and laughter and adventures? Why was that important in your stories?
I'd say for free period, getting back to your question about Scholastic, is that I feel like a lot of adults don't remember what it was like to spend your day for 8 hours at school. And so when you need to take care of yourself, for example, in the bathroom, it doesn't help if what you need is in the nurse's office, or if the bathroom is only accessible in between classes, right? So I think that we write these stories about what kids are actually living at school, and I hope that that's a bridge, even so that kids see their experiences in the books, and that hopefully the adults read them too, so they can remember what it's like when you need to take care of yourself and you don't have access to what you need. And I think that humor, which we have in both of our books, is really important because that's how kids get through the day at school. You spend a lot more time with your friends and your teachers at school often than you do with your own families. And so a lot of that is through humor. And I hope that it breaks the ice around the tough issues that our books deal with.
Right. I was going to add too, Scholastic is so good at really identifying kid-centric, kid-friendly books. And I think, especially in the case of a disease, had we made that the sole focus of the book, you can't have something that's so one note. And in fact, that wouldn't have been Tess's, nor was it Quinn's experience. You have friends, you do baking, you do homework, you navigate new friendships. So I feel like, no, Ali doesn't, we don't want to write a one note book. You want to have it richer and with more depth. So you have more things going on than just that one situation.
Kirby, I think what you said earlier was so powerful to me, because I think it's something that all parents do when you're in that parental situation. Why it becomes such a hard thing is that you don't want your child to go through any experience that is negative. And you take on all of the power of that pain, and it becomes an unapproachable subject. And that happens with parents, it happens with educators or administrators within the school. When kids are just experiencing the moment in their lives, they aren't thinking about that. And so, like we talked about before, Ali, about providing agency, the importance of agency for young people to feel that they have control over their own life and their own body, particularly when it comes to the physical parts of that life. Why is agency so important for your young characters, but also the readers that are going to be reading about these characters?
Yeah, for me, I think that we need these books as a reminder that kids can make change right now, and that they should not be waiting till they're adults. My heart breaks every time I hear someone say, like, well, I'm not on student council, so how could I make a difference? Or, my parents aren't part of the PTA, so no one's going to listen to me. So I think it's really important that we give kids examples in our books of showing that speaking up for yourself doesn't have to be fancy. It doesn't have to be formal. It's not something you wait for when you're a grown up to do. Your voice matters right now. And so Helen and Gracie in this book, they bake maxi pad cupcakes. They crochet uteruses. They make t-shirts with uteruses on them for everyone to wear together at the school board meeting, because that's how they're using their voice right now. And if we're going to have like a society where everyone is heard, we need to see that we have room for people to use their crafts and art to create change, the same as when they're creating an argument or working through a budget to make change. And so I hope that we can instill those ideals in kids right now, because the period equity movement in America, where we've gone from no states taking action to within a couple of years half the states in America either providing some pads or some funding in schools, is a direct result of students standing up while they're in their tweens and teens to demand change.
I think too, like, I was talking about kind of big grandstanding, like making big changes. Also, it's important for kids to see that having a conversation with a teacher or bringing up a problem with one grown up is also impactful, because if you make one change in a classroom, or just, from an individual experience, and you share that with that teacher and they change the policy for that classroom, even small things can really make kids feel like they have agency and the ability to sort of create their or make their voice heard, even in small ways. So
Quinn, I was thinking of the climax of Gut Reaction, where Tess is at the bake off, and the adults around are trying to make accommodations so that she can finish the competition, but she has to make the decision for herself what she needs. And I think that's part of agency too, is gaining the confidence to say, nope, I mean, thank you for thinking of that, but this is really what I need right now. And both things are so essential, coming together as a group, making change for groups, also making change and standing up for yourself.
I feel, I'm thinking back to my own childhood many, many decades ago, but just the idea of anything related to the bathroom in school was it was like the most fearful, traumatic experience, and it was for everybody, whether it involved bullying or bodily functions or whatever it may be. That was like the scariest moment of your day sometimes, when you actually had to go into that space, because it wasn't just about you, it was also about other people that you might come into contact with. What helps you get through that, and you both do so well as this team of allies and friends. And Ali, I love when there are so many well-written characters beyond just the primary characters, and you both did it so nicely in your books. Helen and Gracie have their families, which are very unique with their experiences. Gracie has her two moms and her Aunt Carmela, all very, very different. When she reacts to people in a different way, Helen reacts in a completely different way, finding friends, but she's a little bit more awkward about it. And she has a much more intense family experience. I loved her sister Seraphine, who was just snappy and like an old soul. But everybody got an opportunity to sort of be part of the conversation as well. And then for Gut Reaction, Tess had her team, which I thought was really great. Ellie and Rajit and Emmett and Brooklyn. Everybody getting an opportunity to be able to tell part of their story. Did you have fun finding out who these other people were going to be to help the story go along?
Yeah, I mean, my mom and I, we love Tess, but actually we might like Ellie a little bit more. We had a lot of fun with Ellie.
Ellie is the friend everyone wishes they had to stand by their side. Yeah.
So we loved giving her voice and creating who she was and letting her be a great friend. And yeah.
Yeah, I did too. I think what's so interesting about all these issues is that people can all even mean really well, but just have totally different comfort levels. So that's why you're in like Gracie. She's the character in my book who would wear a full body uterus costume and talk her ear off about periods. And she comes from a household where everybody knows about everybody else's bodily functions all the time. But she also experiences where maybe being in each other's business so much, you're not always being heard though. And then Helen comes from a family where, again, they mean well, they're trying to do the best they can. But, when we're in this age of like 12, 13, 14, it can seem like we're a million miles apart from our parents. And so what I wanted to explore in the book is how, even when we're in these totally different experiences, how can we try to find some common ground and talk about what we need? Because the fact is, we're going to start now at this age, and then we're going to have to advocate for ourselves throughout our entire lives to get the care we need. And I know it's the same issue in gut reaction. So hopefully through seeing all these different experiences, kids won't feel so isolated. And I hope if seeing our characters go through these things, it gives them that little push to maybe speak up for their own needs. Because honestly, if they read Free Period, they'll know that nothing they do is going to be as bad as when Gracie makes maxi pad cupcakes and the school board feels like the cupcakes are having periods all over them. Like nothing they can do would be that bad.
The other part of that is the creating of villains or characters who have more growth. They have a need for more growth in their process. In Gut Reaction, there was a great musical back in the day called Flora the Red Menace. We're going to call Flora the Bread Menace in Gut Reaction because she's such an interesting character too. And in Free Period, you set up Madison, Ali, as possibly that type of character, but then you all allow them to have a room to be able to grow. And why is that another important aspect of writing in making your more challenging, what some people might call villain characters, but I don't necessarily see that way. But why is it important to make them fully grown as the other characters in your books?
Well, that's the world, right? I mean, even the worst bad guy may send his mother a Mother's Day card. You know, we're not all, I mean, if you're bad, you're not all bad. I mean, perhaps that could be arguable. There might be a few people like that in the world, but you know, you don't want to read about a one-note character, just as like Gracie and Helen needed to have other interests, and Tess has other interests. Same for, and I don't think of Flora as a bad guy per se, but she was difficult, and she was hard to approach, and she was a little overly self-confident. But who knows where all that was coming from? You know, is that an act? Does she have doubts about herself as well? So, you know, no one is all one thing or another. And I mean, I think that's why these stories engage readers. And I'm not just going to say kid readers, because I think books like these are meant to be read by people of all ages. But you know, you want to have that depth and that texture, and you don't get that if you have just one-note characters.
Yeah, I had the same experience. And what's interesting is an early draft of this book, Helen and Gracie, the Chaos Monsters, they were dealing with their own period issues, while this type A character in the book, Madison, was working to get pads in the bathroom. And I'm really lucky that my mentor at the time, Rebecca Petruk, who's another middle grade author, said, what if all the girls had to work together? And while I was writing, I was like, absolutely not. They don't like each other. They wouldn't work together. And she gave me some time to think about that. And thank goodness she did, because that really helped me think of what I wanted the book to accomplish as a whole, which is answer that bigger question. What happens when we work with people who are different from us? You know, what can we do when we each combine what's unique about us? And can that be greater than we could have ever accomplished on our own? And so in that book, you have Madison, who might be a very different personality, and she's great at constructing arguments and looking at budgets and really understanding how power works. But maybe she's not getting the attention the issue needs. And you combine her with these chaos monsters and their crochet uteruses. And by combining those two things, you can get the job done. And so I'm really lucky that I was challenged in that way when I was revising the book.
Yeah, I mean, that is like an essential part of that book. So I'm glad that that conversation happened. And I almost thought Madison, because in your book, it is a double POV going back and forth between the two. But I was like, oh, you know, it might be interesting to hear a little Madison POV, like at least like once or twice, you know, because I thought that character was really just so interesting and strong. You know,
sorry,
go ahead. Yeah, absolutely.
That I think too, all of the characters that you want to say are mean or whatever, evil, you know, with the interactions between them, that's what causes change, right? And so I think that's also important to show, is that as we engage with each other and we learn from each other, that's how we become bigger, better people, is with each other, right? We have to engage with those that we disagree with and that we agree with, and so that we can grow. So I think that's
Absolutely.
both the books show that the characters grow as they engage with each other.
Well, and I think that though these books are going to find those readers who are going to connect to the primary characters and the situations that they're dealing with, you're going to have even more readers who are part of that group who are not going to be understanding of the situation to start with, who are actually more in. That is where the power of the change comes here. Yes, it will be seen by people who are going through that situation, but it will also be now in the heads of kids who might not have been understanding of that situation, who might have lightly bullied or been resistant to change, to actually see the experience and hear the experience. And that's the power of what you create. We all know that we're dealing with book banning in every state in this country right now. It gets used as a political tool, but I have said over and over again that it's not books that they're trying to ban. What they're trying to ban is empathy. What exists in middle grade fiction is the most powerful tool in the world for change and progressive change is empathy. And that's exactly what they're trying to ban. They don't want anybody to feel for the experience of another human being, because it doesn't allow them to be able to maintain their control over the situation. And if you look at it like that, that's what these are tools, beautiful, not just, I don't want to use the word tool. How do you use it? There are ways to manifest change in a really wonderful way. And Kirby, you mentioned something, and I was thinking you were talking about. I would love. You said about that adults would read these books, and yes, I was thinking, how great would it be for a daughter or to be able to give these books to their parent, their father in particular, because I think sometimes that is a really hard conversation for either of these topics. With their, maybe it's easier with mom, but not necessarily with dad. What do you think about that?
Well, something you said earlier. So I've been doing this a long time, and I've often been asked, like, well, when are you going to write real books, like books for grown-ups, And I do kind of cringe at that, but I feel like middle grade books are the most important genre out there, because if you go to a fancy dancy cocktail party and you ask every adult there their favorite book, 9 times out of 10, they're going to say something that they read when they were between 8 and 12 years old. I mean, those are the books that really were more open to them. They have a better chance at changing our hearts and changing our lives. And when you were talking about empathy, I think that's why middle grade books maybe have been identified, because they do have that power. And I just, anyway, I just feel like I would never want to write for another genre. I mean, I do write picture books, but it's such an important age to be reaching out to. And not only are the kids this age having the, dealing with getting a period, or maybe dealing with a disease like Crohn's, but it's just that these are the books that are going to stick with them and are going to influence them and shape them in their lives. And I just believe that's why they're just so incredibly powerful and terrifying to people who are afraid of more open conversations. But I think I love it when I hear of like book clubs that get together. Mostly I hear of mother-daughter book clubs.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, we've got to work on those father-daughter book clubs, but that will read books like this together. And I'm hoping, I mean, Ali, maybe you're already hearing from groups like that, but I'm hoping for both of our books that happens. Parent-child book clubs, maybe we should focus on those.
Yeah. I tell parents all the time to read books with their kids, particularly middle grade, but YA as well. But the primary reason is because if you're ever wondering, why does a child, they're like, they're rereading that book for the 3rd or 4th time. Well, they're rereading it because they don't actually have someone to talk to about that particular book. So they're re-engaging with the story one more time. But if you were able to read that story, not separate, not reading together, but actually reading it and then coming together to talk about it, that gives you the enjoyment that we have as adults when we talk to friends about books that we are sharing together. And you're so right about middle grade. I feel that middle grade is as close as you get to contemporary literary fiction for adults in terms of the strength of the topics and the subjects. And as we're getting closer to the end, I want to talk about, so make sure that everybody understands about both of these books. they are really fun. There is a lot going on. I mean, we've got the other topic part of it, but they're really, really fun. So first off, with Ali's book, you have, oh my gosh, pranks for kids who love pranks and really awesome pranks and jokes and humor and crafts. There's so much there. But Kirby and Quinn, for yours, this is as much of a baking, cooking competition book as it is everything else that's going on with it. So can you talk, all of you, about that part of it, that other part of the story that makes it so much fun to write about?
Yeah, so I was looking for ways that, thinking back to when I was a kid, I played the drums, I crocheted, I made crafts, I hung out with my friends. And that's how we used our voices. So I wanted have that feeling in this book, like if you were sitting around hanging out with your friends, what you would be doing. And so they do makeovers for each other. They make matching t-shirts. They manipulate their parents. They manipulate pretty much all the grown-ups, and sometimes it goes well, and sometimes it is an absolute disaster that they have to deal with. But to also connect to your other question is, I've had parents tell me that they're reading it out loud with their 10-year-olds. And so they're laughing together, and then all of a sudden the laughter turns into more of a substantive conversation all of a sudden. And in my own life, I've taken out uterus to talk about things. And I've been told, sometimes it's easier to talk about stuff when it's yarn and sweets as opposed to, facts and figures. So that was really fun in the book. And each time I got to something, I was worried a little bit, like would my editor say, turn that down or tone that down a little bit. And every time I was told, no, go bigger, have more fun. And that was a really great experience writing the book.
Yeah, I think same thing for the baking. Both my mom and I love to bake, and it's a great way for people to connect too. We talked earlier about kids loving food, right? Like what growing child doesn't just, devour whatever's set in front of them, especially if it's sweet and tasty, right? So we really enjoyed connecting with that part of the story. And we actually got the same feedback, was beef up the baking. So we got to go back and add more because it's just a really fun part of the story. And I think, like I said, people just relate to that too.
Yeah, true story. Tess started out as a runner when we first were envisioning her. And both Quinn and I were like, this is not going to work because we are not runners. This is just not a language we speak. And when I don't know how we decide, well, I think because we both love to bake, when we decided she was a baker, that we were able to hear her voice and figure her out a lot better. But yeah.
Well, again, there's another, we didn't really talk about it, but there's another element in the book which is about grief and the act of doing something that you love, how that can be painful, but also comforting. And I thought that was brought together so beautifully in the story as well. With Tessa's, journey through everything, was that baking was both the bane of her existence and the glory of her existence. So it was really just so lovely. I want to say thank you to all of you for creating books that are, what I love about Middle Grade Again is that the books are both mirrors and windows. So they are going to reflect for the reader who's going through these experiences something that they can connect to and find a pathway for themselves with, or be able to start a conversation with a parent or a sister or a sibling or whoever it may be. And then the window, like we said, about creating empathy and an opportunity for changing the way you talk to other people or the way you exist with other people in a positive way. So you've both, they're so good. I can't wait for librarians and teachers to be able to have this. Tell me real quick, have you had any feedback yet from kids or teachers or librarians who've read the book? What have their reactions been so far?
We've been collecting a lot of the reactions on our website, gutreactionbook.com. So, I mean, as I said, it's been overwhelming and coming from all different places. And not to hijack the topic too much, but I also want to say one of the reasons I love so much being part of this particular middle grade community is people like Ali, a debut novelist who spends so much of her time on social media giving shout outs to other people's books. And I just think I can't keep up with her, but I just really appreciate that. She's really representative of the moral support, the mutual support that I have found in this Kidlit community. So Ali, I'm glad I had this chance to thank you in person for all that you do to really call attention to other people's work.
Thank you. Yeah, I really feel like these books are in conversation with each other, and I really hope that they're read together at schools. And what I've been hearing is some feedback I've gotten is that I have a conflict and empathy lesson that goes along with this book that I've given to librarians and teachers. And I've heard that that's really working well because it helps kids kind of talk through these issues and find their own voices. And then, as you can probably tell, there's lots of shenanigans in this book. And I have free resources on my website to really make everything that you find in the book in a DIY way. And I've heard from a couple of bookstores that they're using those things to have period parties at the bookstores to make bracelets, to make drawings, to make sweets. So that's been really great to hear too.
That is so great. I'm so excited to be able to share this book with our community. I actually have a good friend who is both a poet and a knitter, and you're giving me ideas. You're giving me ideas. I'm excited. Thank you all so much. For everyone who's watching this, know that you will have the links to everybody's websites, as well as you can follow us at Children's Book World. This will be on our YouTube page as well, so that everybody can have it. And we have so many wonderful author talks on there, many more author talks to come. In fact, I've got some coming up with Hannah Khan and Christina Suntornvat and all sorts of interesting people. But it was such a joy to be here with the three of you today. I thank you so much for sharing about your books.
Thank you for your enthusiasm. We appreciate you.
Yeah, I would love the books a lot. I can't wait. I can already hear the kids laughing as they're reading these stories. So thank you all. I hope you all have a really great day. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
See you soon.
Thank you.